be able to be put up on the YouTube once we are done. All right, it's should be recording. Let's see how many. All right, more people are coming. People are arriving. All right, it's 3 o'clock. Well, let's go ahead and get started. You can go ahead and use the chat if you want to ask a quick question or something. You can use the audio if you want to ask the question verbally. Totally fine. Either way is just absolutely acceptable. So my name is Jim Voss. I am teaching this section of Calc 2. Hopefully this is the last Zoom session that we are going to have, the first and last, let's hope. So let me just go over kind of how the class is going to look. And again, stop me verbally or with the chat if you have any questions. The main technology that I will use to deliver the notes is OneNote, which is right here. And you all have access to OneNote through your Student Office 365, which you can find in your eWolf account. If you have OneNote open during class, as I write notes on the board in my OneNote file here, it will pop up right into your OneNote file automatically, which is kind of cool. I am going to do one modification with OneNote this semester, and that is that we are going to have a little chunk of homework that is going to be delivered through OneNote, and I'll deliver it in just a few minutes, and we'll see if it works. So if you have the capacity, go ahead and do the following. So the way this works with OneNote and a classroom is that I had to create a Microsoft team. And the only feature of Microsoft Teams that we are going to use is this thing called the class notebook. That's it, nothing else in Teams. So I believe you will have to open up Teams one and only one time. And then once you open up our class notebook, I think you can go directly into that class notebook through the OneNote application that is on your device. So let me just pop up Teams. So you all should have gotten an email. So I invited you to the team for this class. So you should see an email in your student email account from Microsoft Teams. And similar to most applications, you can download Teams as an app on your device, or you could use it through a web browser. And of course, usually if you use the desktop app, there's more features. But again, we are going to use just the bare essentials of Teams. We are only going to use this thing called Class Notebook, which I'm highlighting right here. So that's it. And the Class Notebook is in the background. It's a OneNote file. And so how many of you, give me a thumbs up if you did in fact get the email? Okay, great. So I see a handful of thumbs up. Hopefully those of you that don't have thumbs up just haven't checked your student email. So you need to know how to get into eWolf and get to your student email. That's where the invitation would have come. And if you get into your student email and you don't find that email from Microsoft Teams, go ahead and email me either through my school email, jim.voss@frontrange.edu, or you can email me through the D2L internal email. Either one is totally fine. And we'll get it figured out. The part of OneNote that you're going to use for homework, we won't even get to the content that's on that short assignment, not for a week or so, for most of it, and not for a week or so. So let me show you. So here is what Teams will look like when you open it. And the only thing you need to do is click on Class Notebook. That's the only part we're going to use. We're not using any of this other stuff. This is all built into Teams. We're not using it. We're only curious about this Class Notebook. Obviously, you see this notebook over here. We don't really want to use OneNote jammed inside of this container of Teams. So if you look up in the toolbar here, you're going to see a couple of options. And that's my recommendation right there, is to open it up in the desktop app. If you open it up in the desktop app, then you will have full functionality. You won't have the sort of outer container of Teams. So that's what I'm going to do right here, is open that up. And before I do that, though, let me just show you one feature. This little library symbol here, that's how you open up the table of contents in OneNote. That little library right there opens and closes the table of contents. But let's jump over to the app, because that's going to be way easier. So now we see that the app has taken up our full screen. We don't have that Microsoft Teams container. So much better. So this version of OneNote, we are using something called the class notebook. And let me just point out a couple of things. So I've got a welcome page here, and here's our course schedule for the semester. And here are the important dates and some important weights in terms of homework, quizzes, and all that kind of stuff. And so you can see your homework is going to be 15% of your grade. 10 will be in my math lab, 5 will be these OneNote worksheets that I will show you very shortly. 15% quizzes, 3 midterms, 16% each, and a final of 22%. And the final, this 22% right here, it will also replace a low midterm grade, assuming it's better. So that gives you kind of an out. If you blow one exam, final will can replace that missing, or well, it could be a missing exam, or it could be just an exam you didn't do so hot on. Either case, either way. All right, so let me say this about the syllabus. The syllabus, if we go over to D2L, that's where the syllabus is. I don't have the syllabus in OneNote. Syllabus is over in D2L. Let's jump over to D2L for a minute, and then we're going to come back to OneNote and talk about some stuff. So here is our course page in D2L. And if you go to content, that's how you will get to my math lab and a bunch of other stuff. Right here, it looks like I landed on the link to the playlist for this course. So after every class, I will upload the video to YouTube, and there's the link to that playlist that will have all of our lecture videos. There are some study guides here for the exams right there. Here's a blank set of PDF notes, which you may use if you're interested in that. I think it's going to be easier to actually use the OneNote notes, but if you want blank pages, paper pages to bring to class of the notes, that's where they are. If you want to print them out and bring them to class, totally fine. Under course documents, you'll see the syllabus and schedules, and another document that kind of describes how I grade the exams. We'll talk about that when we get closer to exam 1. So let's just take a peek here. Syllabus, I'm not even going to open it. These days at FRCC, the syllabus has become this big, long kind of template from the system office. It's all, a bunch of facts and legalese type stuff. And most of us have stopped personalizing the syllabus because it's become so extraordinarily long with just kind of all the system information. Should you look through it? Absolutely. But the most important document for this class is going to be this schedule, which is right here in D2L. And then I also have it in OneNote. So there is the schedule. And let's just talk about that before we bounce a little bit further into D2L. So here's all the content I'll be talking about on each of the days. Our class is Mondays and Wednesdays, 3 to 5:15. And I'm doing something a little different this semester. In prior semester, I've taught this class a bazillion times. And lately I've been getting a lot of emails, like right before homeworks are due. Starting to warm up here. My wife keeps the house cold, so I'm all bundled up in sweats. So the homework traditionally I've had due kind of more on a weekly basis. But the last few years, it's kind of been, I get like 3 or 4 or 5 emails saying, hey, can we extend it a day? Can I extend it 2 days? I've got this going on or that going on, and totally fine, like life happens. But what I'm going to do this semester and see how it works is treat you like college students and let you get everything due 2 days before our, 1 day before our exam. So exam 1 is on the 13th of February, and the homework, so that means the MML homework and the OneNote homework and the quizzes, those are all going to be due the Sunday before, so on the 12th. So we're going to review for our exam on the 8th. That's a Wednesday, and then the Sunday a few days later, that's when everything's going to be due at once. 6-1, 6-2, 6-3, 6-4, 6-5, 6-6, 6-7, and 7-3. So I'm going to leave it up to you. I'm going to leave it up to you to pace yourself. So if we finish 6-1 today, which we will, you should really have that homework done within 48 hours, or at the very least, the night of the following class. If you have questions as you're bouncing through 6.1 and you need that Monday to come into class and ask me questions. You need that Monday to come into class and ask me. Somebody's audio is getting crazy here. I can't tell whose it is. I can't see whose microphone is on.
Looks like James.
James, maybe, yeah. Yeah, I think it was James. No worries. So my recommendation then is to have that homework assignment done, either before the following class, or if you need the following class to ask some questions, then that night at the latest. But I'm going to let you all pace yourself. All right. And that's kind of how the layout's going to be. Our exams are going to all conveniently fall on a Monday, which is kind of nice because you get the weekend to study. And then our review days will be the Wednesday prior. And then homework will be due the Sunday, the day before the exam is taken. Here are the important dates for the class. So if you drop quickly, you get a refund. If you drop before the 15th, you'll get a withdraw, which is a W on the transcript instead of a poor grade. Generally, it's better to have a W than a poor grade. If you have any questions about your situation, of course, ask me. I've been doing this a long time, so I should have answers for most questions. And then the breakdown of our scores again. Any questions that you have on the schedule and basic layout so far?
No, I think only question is office hours. That's the only questions.
Yeah, so the office hours for this class will be right before class. So we have a late class. Our class starts at 3, so I'll have office hours 2 to 3. And my office, I didn't put them on. Yeah, that's a good point, Roberto. I should have put that right on here. So my office is B1318, and my office hours for this class will be 2 to 3. And another important way to get in touch with me or to get some help from me is in the Math Center. So the Math Center is down in the library. It's L280. And I'm in the Math Center every Wednesday, except today, from 9 until 11 a.m. So 9 to 11. Last semester I had these hours, 9 to 11 also. We had a contingent of 5 or 6 Calc 2 students in there at all times, circulating different ones. So yeah, so come down if you're free, 9 to 11 on Wednesdays, pop into the Math Center. A nice thing with the Math Center schedule this semester is that there are actually more folks than ever that can in fact help you with Calculus 2. So that's a darn good thing. And if you go down to the Math Center, you'll see the schedule, and the schedule, on the schedule, it indicates who can help with what topics. So there's Charles Von Tagen, who many of you have had. He can help with Calc 2. Cody Fisher's down there. He's taught Calc 2 and can help with Calc 2. There's a number. There's more folks than ever that can help. Renee Swindle, she does a lot of work with students of mine. So she's a good one to go down there. She knows how I do things. So yeah, if you can make it to the Math Center for my hours, that's great. Or someone else that can do Calc 2, super good, super great idea. So those are the course documents. And then my math lab is right here. They've rebranded it. Now they're calling it My Lab Math instead of My Math Lab. Either one, those are synonymous. My Lab Math, My Math Lab, doesn't matter. Click on there and you will see links to all the features in My Math Lab. So assignments here, this will take you to the quizzes and the homework. The multimedia library, that's the database of all media that is in My Math Lab for this course. Lots of videos, animations, things like that. Study plan, that is the database of exercises. So the study plan has big table of contents of every single electronic problem there is for this book. And the homework and the quizzes from MyMathLab just grab a subset of those. But if you're stuck on a topic, if you have a homework assignment that's got 2 questions on a topic and you feel like you still don't have it, that's where you go. You go to the study plan. You can do a bazillion questions, as many as you want on that topic. So if you click on the study plan, it's going to just pop up a table of contents for the book, and you can go wherever you want. And if you click all chapters, it will show you the full table of contents, and you just drill down. It's like, oh man, I stink at integration. I want to do some practice integration from Calc 1 right there. If we're doing, well, the place where a lot of people get snagged is infinite series and infinite sequences. You can come in here and practice the root test and the ratio test. There's a bazillion problems. And notice the film strip. That tells you that there's a video that walks you through that type of problem. So there are way many resources in MyMathLab. And the study plan is underutilized. There is a lot of stuff there that you can use to master the skill and drill part of the course. Gradebook, that keeps track of your MML stuff, so your quizzes and your homework that you do in MyMathLab. And so what I tend to do is right after an exam, I am going to get your exam scores into MyMathLab, and then I'm going to pull all the scores over to D2L so that you could look in either gradebook right after an exam and they would match. I'm not going to pull over every single homework to D2L. Right after an exam, I'll pull over your overall homework average, your overall quiz average, and then I'll also put your exam into MyMathLab. So right after an exam, both gradebooks will be accurate. The MyMathLab gradebook is always more accurate based on your homework and your quizzes as you go through. Most of you have used MyMathLab in the past. If you haven't, let me just call out a couple of things. Quizzes you can take 2 times, and the highest one will count. And then homework questions, you have an infinite number of tries at each question. So there really isn't any reason not to get 100 on your homework. If you're not getting 100 on your homework, that's kind of the bare essential work that you should be putting into this course. If you're not getting 100 on your homework, it's pretty hard to say that you're spending enough time. Speaking of time, most students, in order to get an A in this class or a solid B, most students are going to be spending about 15 hours outside of class a week. Some more. Calc 2 is where it starts to get really hard. Calc 2 and Calc 3 are the hardest 2. Those are the gauntlet. You're an engineering major, math major, science major. Getting through Calc 2 and Calc 3 is sort of the first major milestone in those degrees. And Calc 2 and Calc 3 are both hard. Some think 2 is harder than 3, some 3 harder than 2. They're both hard. And if you don't have good study skills, you're going to need to develop them real quick, because many of us are kind of, sort of had a good aptitude for math. And maybe you were able to get through college algebra without studying. That's very possible if you've got sort of a, kind of the math gene, if you will. But when you hit Calc 2, there's very, very, very few people that can get through without really solid study habits. This is the beginning of the hard classes for most folks in most of these harder degrees. So you want to keep that in mind. You want to be realistic with your time. Make sure you've got the time based on your family life, your work life, all that kind of stuff. It's definitely going to be, it's a lot harder than Calc 1. Calc 1 had how many topics? 2, derivatives and integrals. Our topics are all over the map, and they're in many ways totally disconnected, other than the fact that there's an integral in them. Okay, so then there's 2 ebooks. There's the interactive one, and then there's the passive one, the HTML one. And the interactive one is fine if you're on a computer, but you might want to use the non-interactive one if you're on a mobile device. Roberto, question.
Yes, one of my questions was, since you were talking about study habits, is there anything that you would recommend us looking into, like, for study habits?
The main thing is repetition and not getting behind. So giving yourself, I would try to schedule math work 5 nights a week minimum. so that it's kind of like learning a foreign language
Mhm.
where you really just, it's better to have regular exposure than exposure once or twice a week. Doing it once or twice a week for a ton of hours is a lot less effective in the long run than doing it 5 nights a week for a few hours. So my advice would be to, have a planner and say, okay, I'm going to do math, whatever nights of the week it is, for 3 hours or more, an hour in the morning and 2 hours at night, or whatever it happens to be. But I would try to be very deliberate about it. I would try to set up a schedule and stick to it, because it's very easy to put stuff off when you're juggling a lot of classes and work and screaming kids and those kind of things. So yeah, and if you feel like you're having trouble setting aside that time, we can try to come up with a more specific plan for you individually based on what your situation is. But in general, it's really trying to schedule time and to take advantage of these resources that are in here. Like, it doesn't take a lot of brain power to sit down and watch a bunch of videos in the multimedia library. You can go to the multimedia library and, maybe you don't feel like writing, but you feel like getting some exposure. Watch a few videos, each night right before you go to bed or something, just to try to stay regular. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see. So that's about it in this area. Let's go back over to OneNote, and let me show you the features that I have in our OneNote, in our class notebook. And the coolest feature of OneNote is that everything is open all the time. No drilling. None of this clicking of breadcrumbs all through D2L. The whole semester is right here. Here are the chapters that we are covering. So under content library, that's where the notes are going to be. That's a read-only area in the class notebook. I can edit it, but you can't. So this is where our class notes are going to be. Here's chapter 6, 6.1, 6.2, 6.3. It's all right there. We don't have to open a file, close a file, open a file, close a file. Chapter 7, we're only covering one section right there. Here's the review that we're going to do on the review day. Here are the prior exams that I have posted for you. So I've got 3 exams that I gave recently, and so you can take a look, and there are the answer keys right there. So it's just super slick and easy to bounce around in OneNote, which makes it a fantastic software to use in a classroom. Celeste, question.
Yeah, sorry, can you just remind me where you find the link for this notebook again? I'm
Yes.
just checking my email and can't find it anywhere.
So in your you're checking in your student email?
Yep.
So in your student email on, I sent out the invite to Teams. I forget what day I sent it out. It was in the last couple days. Probably might have been just yesterday. So you should see an email from Microsoft Teams, and you're not seeing that?
No, not right now, but I'll
Yeah, poke
I'll be
around
searching.
and you're looking in your student email, you're through eWolf.
Yep.
So yeah, so if you don't have it in there, I'll send another invite let's do this, because this is pretty easy. So if I'm in Teams right here, I can come to here and I think I go to, I don't know Teams that well, but I think I can click right here. And your last, Celeste, what was your last? Oh, Wilson. So let's see. So what order is this in? This does not look like
I see it. I'm one of the green ones.
Yeah, you're right there. Yeah, so it looks like, so you haven't logged in yet. It's what that's showing, but it does show that I sent you the email.
Okay, cool. I'll just
Yeah, double check and send me an email if you can't find it, and we can get on a one-on-one thing, and I can resend it to you, and we can try again.
Sounds good.
Yeah, absolutely. Cole, you have a question?
Actually, I had a potential solution. With the emails, mine froze at like January 3rd when they changed them, when they switched them around.
Yes.
So you might have to re-put in your original student.ccs.edu email again and into Outlook.
Oh,
because mine mine made like an outlook something.com, and it made a weird one, and I didn't get any of the emails, but they're all on the other one.
Yeah, that's
So
a
I try
good
that.
point. Thank you for
Okay.
pointing that out because they had that big email glitch. And so you
Mhm.
do want to be going into eWolf and sort of re-logging into eWolf and reinitiating your email. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, they completely changed my email. So you could also check eWolf and check like what's my email and then just sign in with your password because they actually changed mine. So if that
So
helps.
your email username actually switched.
Yeah, but like I still got the email that you sent, but they
Okay.
switched it and I couldn't log in until I checked what my email was.
Okay, good. Thank you for
Yeah.
that. That helps.
So I ended up going through and checking, and I do have the correct email now. So I'll just send you a message if I can't figure it out by the end of class. but
Okay,
it
yeah, that
does
sounds
look
good.
like-
So yeah, when you get in the email, you're just going to click on, download Microsoft Teams. And then once you get in Teams, this is what you should see. And then you're going to click right on that class notebook. And once you click on that class notebook, I don't think you ever have to go into Teams again, unless you're on a different device. I think from then on, you can just go straight into OneNote. And if you don't have OneNote on your device, you'll go to your Office 365 subscription and make sure that you've downloaded it onto your computer. But it should be in your Office suite, with Word and Excel and all those other Office programs. Should be right in there. All right, sounds good. So let's jump into OneNote again and let me point out some features of this. And the main thing is that there are different spaces with different permissions. So this collaborative space, all of us have access to this collaborative space, me, you all. And what I'm going to try to do this semester, and I don't know if it'll work or not, there are three ways to ask me questions. In my math lab, there is a link that says ask my instructor. And you're more than welcome to click on that. And it's kind of slick because it just fires off an email that has a snapshot of the problem that you're working on. So I can see what you're working on. And it comes right to my email. So that's pretty easy. The downside of that is no one else can benefit from my response to you. It's just to you. And if three people ask the same question, then I have to repeat myself 3 times, which isn't terrible, but so there's 2 other ways to ask questions. One, I'm hoping is that in here, in this collaborative space, if you have a question, I put a sample here, I ask myself a question. So I just did a screenshot of the question that was in my math lab, and I asked this question and then I replied. So I'm wondering if we could maybe use this kind of like a discussion board. And all you need to do is if you click on this here, you can just highlight this up here and type in the code for the question. So this is chapter 6, section 1, number 14. Put it in right there so I know where it comes from, and then I could reply to you down here. So I'm thinking that this might be a pretty streamlined way to use kind of a discussion question answer thing. And perhaps what I'll also do is if you do fire off and ask my instructor question to me, I might copy and paste it into here myself just so that others could look at that and get some benefit from the response. And if these things were all full here, you all should be able to just add a page right down here, right there, and then another one pops up. So there's a bunch of them. So it's super easy. And then you can paste your question in here. And OneNote is pretty easy in terms of putting in things. You can drag and drop things from another file. You can, if you click up on this insert tab, you can insert a printout of a PDF. So if you do some work and then make it a PDF, you can upload it super easily. You can take screenshots, you can do, pictures, whatever. It's pretty easy in terms of just dragging content in. It's like a big canvas that you just sort of slap stuff onto. So that's a new thing. We'll try, see if it can be beneficial to us. Then again, the content library is read only for you, but that's where I will do all our class notes. Let me point out some of these things in here. Handouts. So you did notice that in this welcome page here, I put the schedule, but also down in handouts, I have it also here, just because that is going to be our guiding document. Oh, I guess I forgot to put it in there. I will put it in there also. Grading guidelines. This tells you how I'm going to grade you on your exam. Couple of interesting problems here that are going to come up in chapter 10 and 11. We'll talk about that when the time comes. More stuff on 10 and 11, power series and convergence tests, 10 and 11. We'll talk about that. Unit circles. So the nice thing in Calc 2 is that you finally get to use all that trig that you learned in pre-calc. Calc 1 used very little trig. You know, you learned how to differentiate and integrate sine and cosine and a couple other trig functions, but you didn't really use trig. Calc 2 and Calc 3, trig is woven in and out of Calc 2 and Calc 3 all over the place. Every chapter, almost every section, you're going to see trig. So if it's been a while, if you've forgotten, I've got a couple of blank unit circles up here, an 8 sector, you know, multiples of 45 degrees, 12 sector, multiple of 30 degrees, plus a completed one. You want to be able to do those unit circle values instantly. That's just going to put you at a disadvantage if you don't have that down. This essential formulas, this is all the prerequisite formula stuff that we're going to use quite a bit. So I would look over this. We're going to use the power reduction identities a ton. We're going to use the Pythagorean a ton, double angles a ton. So all these things that you barely used in trig, we're going to use a lot in here, in Calc 2 and in Calc 3 for the most part. So take a look at that. And then this is just a summary of the Calc 2 formulas. These are the ones that you're going to learn this semester. I've got them broken down by the chapters, 6 and 7, 8 and 9. There's 12. 10 and 11 are missing because these are 10 and 11 right here. These two files there, those ones are 10 and 11. So again, everything is right here, very simple. This teacher only space, that's just for me. You can't see this stuff. And this is where I'm building the worksheets. And actually, let's do it right now. Let's deploy this worksheet. So this is where I'm going to build the worksheet. So here's our chapter 6 worksheet. And the idea with these worksheets, I'm going to do 4 of them for our 4 main chapters, 6, 8, 10, and 11. 7 and 9, we just cover a little bit of stuff, so we're not going to do a worksheet for there. And my focus is going to be much more on concepts as opposed to the nitty-gritty skill and drill that you see in my math lab. My math lab's great for skill and drill, but this is going to be more conceptual based. So like right here, we're looking at this image. We are not going to evaluate, we're just going to set up some integrals. So instead of focusing on the skill and drill of evaluating integrals, I want you to focus on the concept of finding area in this case. And down here, finding volume. We'll get to this when we start rotating around axes. So these are going to be 4 volume problems. And again, just set up the integral. That's all you have to do. And so the cool thing is this. So I'm going to just pop down. Let's go to Logan's account down here. So here's Logan. This is his space and my space. So he and I are the only ones that can see this space. And there are 2 folders. I don't know what might go into the random. I will deploy stuff in it, or you can put your own stuff in it. Doesn't matter. But the worksheets that I deploy to you all are going to be in your worksheet thing. So all of you will have these 2 little folders in here. All right. And let's go ahead and deploy. So I'm looking at this worksheet right now. I'm going to come up to class notebook. And if you have OneNote open now and you can see your space, I'm going to distribute this page. So I'm going to distribute that. And I should get an option over here. I'm going to send it to your worksheet folder. So I'm going to distribute it to your worksheet folder. And I should then get an option to choose who distribute to all students. Waiting to start. Pages will continue distributing while you work. Okay, so it started. So it's now distributing to all of you. And in a minute, you should all, if you have your OneNote open, when you open your personal area there, you should see that that worksheet is now there. And that's where you will provide your answers to those questions. If you have a tablet device, you can just draw right in OneNote. If you want to do it on separate paper and take a photo and then import it, totally fine. Once you're inside here, it's very easy. If you need more space, you can just start hitting the return button and it will give you more space. Actually, shift return is a better thing because shift return doesn't put the number there. So if you do shift return, it will give you more space. So OneNote is just a big canvas and you can do what you need to do to create enough space. So now you should all see that. let's just come down here to Logan. Okay. So I'm in his, oh, I don't see it yet. Let's see. Says it was deployed. Oh, there it is. So Anjil, if I'm saying that correctly, under chapter 6, right there, there's the worksheet. Let's go back to Logan and see if we see it in there. Oh, there it is, just popped up. So there it is. So now you all should have it, or maybe there's a little bit of a delay. And so then you can just type right in here. You can insert a picture. You can do whatever you want to do pretty easily. All right. All right. So any questions on that functionality or that expectation? So this will be the worksheet that's due the Sunday before that first exam. Any questions on that, or does that make sense to everybody?
I can't think of any questions at the moment, but maybe later on I will.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if
Whatever
you could see my
hesitant.
hand up there,
Yeah, oh,
but
yeah, there's your hand. Hey, Dan. Yeah, what's up?
I was wondering, in terms of entering our input, is there an equation editor that we should be using, or is it easiest to handwrite and then take a photograph, or what's the best
You can
way?
try. I don't know what the best way is. So there is an equation editor right here. And it kind of depends on which version of OneNote you use. So there's two versions of OneNote. There's the OneNote desktop version, and there's the OneNote web version. And the one I'm using is the web version, which doesn't have quite the same functionality with its equation editor. So it kind of depends on the one you use. You can, draw it on separate paper and take photos. You can write it on an iPad or some other tablet device. You can type it into the equation editor in Desmos or in Word and screenshot it over. Yeah, try a bunch of things and see if you can figure out what works best for you.
Okay. Thank you for the advice.
Absolutely. Alex, what are you thinking?
So I'm still trying to get on the My Team, and I'm clicking the link, and I download the app, but when I go into like Teams, there's not one, because it should say like math, the one that it is, and then so I'm wondering if like you can just give me the code maybe, and I could try that. Because I clicked the link.
Let me jump over to Teams and let's just see if I see you on my list first. I'm not, again, this is my first time, so we'll have to figure it out.
Because I need to be in Teams to look at the OneNote, right?
Yes, you have to open it the first time you do. And let's see, your last name is Cervantes. Tell me if you see your name on there.
Yeah, it's the
right here.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, let's stay after class and we'll try to figure it out.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah, we'll get it working. Should be just a matter of, I can either re-invite you or I'll see if I can find an actual link to the team. I think both are possible. So yeah, we'll figure that out. Okay.
Hey Jim, I had a question real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
When we do that like OneNote worksheet or something, do you like submit it to you or anything? Or is it like we edited it and now you just see it?
Great question. Great question. So the due date is just the date that I said. So on the date that I said it's due, if we come back up here, so it's going to be due on 2/12. So what's going to happen is on probably Monday morning, unless I am up past midnight many nights. So whatever it is, so as soon as 2/12 ends, by midnight on 2/12 is when it's due. What I will do is go in and I'll lock them. So then you can't change it. So when I go into the class notebook over here, let's see, I've got to get this out of the way. If I go into the class notebook, I don't need to show you, but there's a way for me to lock it. So the day that it's due, I'll go in and lock them so that you can't add to it then. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. So like when I just put in like my handwritten notes or pictures or whatever, and then I'm done. And then I just wait for you to look at it later.
Yeah, that's right. So as soon as the due date comes, I'll lock them and then I'll go in and I'll edit and I'll give you comments on it, feedback on it. And And you'll see it as soon as I finish doing it, you'll see it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Question.
Yeah, so I feel a little confused about like where we need to do our assignments. Like,
In my,
is-
most of your assignments are in MyMathLab.
so they're like two different platforms. Like one is MyMathLab and one is OneNote, right?
Correct, exactly. So OneNote is where all of our class will be. This is where I'm going to lecture every single day. This is where all the notes that are from class are going to be. And it's also where one piece of homework will be. That one piece of homework will be in these
Worksheets.
worksheets right here. And so you'll just put your work right in here, right there.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's right. So two different places.
Will there be a worksheet to do every week?
No, there's only going to be 4. So I'm going to do one for each of these 4 chapters. So chapter 6, chapter 8, chapter 10, and 11.
Okay,
So those are kind of the 4 major chapters that we're going to cover. 7 and 9, we just do a couple, we do, in 9, we do these 2 little sections, very, very quick. And in chapter 7, we do 1 section that's relatively quick. So I'm just going to focus for the worksheets just on those 4 major ones.
So one more question.
Yeah, go for it.
So there will be like 4 worksheets, including MyMathLab homeworks, right?
So for
So-
chapter 6, you're going to have 1 worksheet for chapter 6.
Mhm.
And then if you come over to MyMathLab, you will see that your assignments, let's go here. Oh, I'm already, there for you. So if we click on assignments, you'll see the assignment for each section. So there's a homework for section 6.1, a homework for section 6.2, 6.3, 6.4, 6.5, 6.6, and 6.7. And then there's these other assignments, if you will. They're not homework, but what I did was just in order to try to incentivize you to watch some of the MyMathLab tutorials, I just created an assignment that's holding the media for that section. So there's nothing, you don't have to do anything in here, but these are videos and these are interactive figures. Now that actually brings up a point. And if you took, well, it depends on who you took Calc 1 from. So these things with these little light bulbs, those are called interactive figures, and you need a plugin in order to play those. And that plugin is called the CDF Player. So if you go to Google and you search for CDF Player, you will get the player that you need in order to play those interactive figures. So if you just if you just search CDF Player, so it's made by Wolfram Alpha, or by Wolfram. So CDF Player, that is the player that you need to, if you want to use that portion of the interactive textbook where you have the interactive figures where you can slide sliders and whatnot, you'll need that player, the CDF Player. Gerardo, question.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to look at MyMathLab assignment, but I get like like a decline or accept terms and condition. Every time I accept, it just says error has occurred. I don't know if that's been, I don't know. I just wanted to comment that real fast.
Okay, so say that again. So you are in fact going to the homework?
Yeah, I go to the MyMathLab assignment to take a look at all that stuff. And I just keep getting like an error has occurred. Like I get like a terms and conditions, and obviously I accept everything, but yeah, then after that it just says an error has occurred.
What browser are you using?
I'm on Chrome.
Try emptying your cache and doing it again. Do you know how to empty your cache?
I should be able to, yeah.
So yeah, if you're not 100% sure, just Google Chrome cache empty and it will walk you through. Let's try that first and see if that cleans it up.
Okay, cool. I'll try that.
Sometimes the browsers just get weird stuff, residual stuff in the cache, and you just have to reset it, and that's often enough. But if
Yeah, okay, I'll
not,
give
well,
it a
we can
try.
stay after class and try to figure it out.
Sure, that's fine.
All right, well, let's see. So, let's go ahead and I think it's time to start doing math. So,
May I ask one question
whoa,
before you
we have
start?
a staller.
Sorry.
Staller.
Uh,
Ed?
Just regarding those worksheets, since
Absolutely.
it covers all of the chapter material, do you recommend we complete all of the My Math Labs or My Lab Math or whatever
Yeah.
prior to attempting that?
No, not necessarily. So if you look, so we're going to start talking about area a little bit today, but we'll finish it up on Thursday, on Monday. So this first group that are based on the area practice, I would expect you to be able to do next week pretty easily. So, but then the volume one, oh wait, there's the area ones. The area ones, I think you should be able to do next week, but the volume ones, not for, a little bit longer. You don't necessarily need to do all the MML homework before you start these. You can kind of pace yourself, so I'm going to try to label them pretty clearly. So this is area. And if we look here, chapter 2 is where we start finding, or section 2, this is where we're going to be finding area between curves. So once we finish section 2, you should be able to do that first chunk. And then the volume here is going to be the end of the volume is 6-4. So we'll be finding volume with things called shells, washers, and discs. And so you should be able to do all the volume piece as soon as we finish 6-4.
Okay, so it's grouped by kind of content.
Yeah,
and
by a
as soon as we've
topic.
covered it or covered that topic, then dive in.
Yeah, that's right. And
Okay,
so I
thank you.
didn't put any, this is the first time I'm trying this, so I also don't want to overwhelm. I want to see how long it takes you, those kind of things. So I didn't put anything from this later stuff, just to make sure you have plenty of time to do it. And it's content that's really fundamental. Like this application section, 6-7, super interesting, super fun, very kind of hands-on, if you will, application driven. But I didn't want to put a complicated one of these on there when we're only going to cover this a few days before it's due. So
Okay.
try not to, I definitely don't want to overwhelm you with too much. So I'm going to really try to focus on the concepts that are useful going forward as well. Like these applications are super cool, but you probably aren't going to see that. You're not going to see those in Calc 3, but you would see them again in a physics class or something like that. So I'm just kind of focusing more on the math stuff that you would use later in Calc 3 and beyond.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, let's go to our first section and let's see if I have my war room set up properly here and that I can actually do what I hope to be able to do with my device. Our first section is, and so when you do have OneNote open, you can always give yourself more desktop space by just closing that little library thing there. Looks like I have plenty of space here because the font is small enough. Okay, so we're going to talk about velocity. We're going to talk about displacement. We're going to talk about distance traveled and those kinds of things that should be pretty familiar. You've seen them before. Let's go ahead. I'm trying to figure out if I can move this out of the way. Can I stretch that? There we go. That's okay. So first of all, we are going to talk about movement along a line. So this is not movement around a curve, along a curve. It's not movement in three-dimensional space, like on a helix or anything like that. Simplest possible motion, back and forth along a line. That's all we're going to address with this topic, back and forth on a line. And we are going to say that the direction to the right, that's the positive direction, and to the left is the negative direction. So they use the letter S to represent the position. S of A will be the position on the number line at t equals A. S of B will be the position on the number line at t equals B. And the first definition is going to be for displacement. And displacement is going to be nothing more than S of B minus S of A. So it is the terminal position minus the initial position. Displacement, terminal minus initial. Now, if your position at time A is to the left of your position at time B, then your displacement will be positive. If your initial position is to the right of your terminal position, your displacement will be negative. You have moved in the negative direction, so your displacement will be negative. Your distance traveled will still be positive, but your displacement will be negative. Okay. Now we already have a very convenient mathematical symbol that you learned in Calc 1 that gives us S of B minus S of A. And that convenient symbol is the definite integral. And so here's a fact that we would need to know. We need to know that velocity is the derivative of position. And we also will see shortly that we need to know that the derivative of velocity, so S prime is going to be V. We also are going to need to know that V prime is equal to acceleration. So those are two basic facts that you've seen before. And if you're in physics, you know that often you start with acceleration and you'll integrate to get to velocity, and then you'll integrate again to get to position. So we'll see those types of examples shortly. Okay, so if we integrate velocity, that's the same thing as integrating S prime. And if we integrate a derivative, you know from Calc 1 that those two undo each other. The integral of a derivative takes away the derivative. So the integral of S prime is S. And then we plug in our upper endpoint, we plug in our lower endpoint, and bada bing, S of B minus S of A. We just said S of B minus S of A. That is displacement on the interval A to B. So we now have a mathematical representation of displacement. So every time we integrate velocity, we get displacement. And we don't have to worry about, don't do that. I forget how I undo that. So we don't have to worry about, let's see, I'm worrying right now about that. And I know there's a way for me to correct it and I can't remember what it is. I'll figure it out in 1 second. So the nice thing is that that symbol automatically works. It automatically gives us the S of B minus S of A. We don't have to worry about when's the particle moving to the right and when's the particle moving to the left. This just does it for us. So very convenient. Here are some pictures of a velocity function. So this velocity function, this is not position, this is velocity. So this tells us that when the t value is A, whatever that number is over here, that would be the velocity right there. And this velocity is slowly going down until we get to this point. And what do you think the velocity is at that moment right there that I have my cursor on?
0.
So this velocity, so if we imagine our particle, it's moving to the right. Is my hand moving to the right when I go this way?
Yeah.
That is moving to the right? Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes they reflect and not, and so I just want to make sure that that's to the right. So it is just like I'm looking at a classroom. So in this area here, from t equals A to t equals whatever that number is, we're moving to the right on the number line. But now the velocity is 0, so we stop. And now the velocity is negative. It's below the t-axis. So now we're moving back. So now we're moving in the negative direction. So we're moving to the left here. Okay. And we know from Calc 1 that if you integrate a curve that passes through the axis, what you can think geometrically is that the value of that integral is whatever this upper area is minus whatever this lower area is. So we get A1 minus A2. That is the displacement. Now, This area up here is representing the distance traveled in the positive direction. This area down here is representing distance traveled in the negative direction. And so if we wanted the total distance traveled, we could take the absolute value of this curve, and the absolute value of this curve here will just reflect it through the t-axis and pop it up there. And the total distance traveled will be this area plus this area. So A1 plus A2 is going to give us distance traveled versus A1 minus A2 is going to be the displacement. So if the areas happen to be equal, the displacement is 0. It's like starting at home, driving to work or school, and then driving back. Your displacement is 0, but clearly your distance traveled is not 0. So what we will do is integrate the absolute value of velocity if we want to get distance traveled. And the absolute value of velocity is called speed. So this right here, that is speed. So if you integrate speed, you will get distance. If you integrate velocity, you will get displacement. So let's try an example. So here we have a particle moving along a line, and we don't see the motion right here, right? We don't see the s-axis, right? So there's an s-axis. We don't see it though. This is the velocity. This tells us the velocity at time 0, time 2, well, you know, et cetera, all the way up to time 8, t equals 8. So first off, on what intervals is the object moving in the negative direction? Somebody tell me the first interval that our particle is moving in the negative direction on.
0 and 2.
So we are moving in the negative direction for sure on the interval 0 to 2. So we're moving in the negative direction. And should the 0 and 2 be in parentheses or in brackets?
Parentheses.
It should be parentheses, because what is the velocity at those two positions right there?
0.
0. So it is not moving to the left, or not moving in the negative direction, because the velocity is 0 at those endpoints. So we don't include them. And I think you're catching on. So the second interval that we are moving to the left is right there. And moving in the positive direction. Let's see. Let's make sure let's put this also just to make sure it's clear. So the positive direction looks like 2 to 4 and 6 to 8.
Yes, sir.
And we again are going to use parentheses because at those endpoints, the object's not moving. And if it's not moving, it's not going in the left or right direction. So we exclude the endpoints in this case for sure. So B says, what is the displacement on the interval 2 to 6? So we're going to focus 2 to 6, and we want displacement.
4 to the right.
So the displacement is going to be 14 minus 10 on that interval. So the displacement is going to be positive 4. So in that interval, so from t equals 2 to t equals 4, the displacement will be 4. What would the distance traveled on that interval be?
24.
Yeah, the distance traveled would be 14 plus 10. So that would be 24. That's right. Okay, C says, what is the total distance traveled over the interval 0 to 6? So now let's focus on 0 to 6. And part C is asking for the distance traveled on that interval. What do we think?
44.
So we're going to do it. So distance traveled is going to be all absolute value stuff. So distance traveled on that interval from 0 to 6, we would, whoops, I put the 14 first. Would be more, I should be putting the 20 first, I think. So we're starting, and distance traveled will be just the sum of all these areas. And I think, did I hear that number 44?
Yeah.
So that's distance traveled on the interval 0 to 6. what is the displacement on the whole interval 0 to 8 displacement? 0 to 8, what do you think?
-10.
Yeah. Okay, part E says, what does that mean? So we're going to be moving to the left 10. Now, we don't know where we're starting, right? We don't know what the initial position was, right? They don't tell us that the initial position is 0. They don't tell us that they don't tell us anything about the initial position. So all we know is that we're 10 left of initial position. Does that make sense?
Would we just say 10 units if they don't give us any other measure?
Yeah, if they don't give us units, we'll just, yeah, in some of these applications, some of these problems, they're not giving us any units. I don't see any units here, so it would just be 10. We'll just say, we could say 10 units left, but. So I see a chat question over there. So the finished notes, these are going right into OneNote. So once you get your class notebook open, you'll see the notes right in there in OneNote in the content library of OneNote. That's where they'll be. And that's right. If you have it open right now, you'll see my ink will come right onto your screen if you have the notebook open right now. All right, yeah, I'm not sure what happened here. These all changed color. I wanted, sometimes the tablet device I'm using, sometimes there's some sort of laggy thing, and sometimes I can't quite tell what's selected and it changes color on me. I'll try to, well, hopefully this is the last Zoom session we have to do, right? Hopefully we don't have to do Zoom again. See, look at that. I don't quite get when it, I think what I've noticed is that if I click on the eraser and come back down here and erase something, that then it all of a sudden catches back up. There, so now it should be all caught back up. Yeah, weird. Okay, let's bounce to, oh, hey, it's 4 o'clock. So we will take a 10-minute break every day at 4. So let's go ahead and honor that now. Let's take a 10-minute break. And let's start back about 4:12. So bathroom break, whatever. I'll see you back here in 10 minutes.